The morning alarm buzzed through the small research station on New Bazan colony. Lee Taemin rolled out of his narrow bunk and stretched his arms above his head. Another day of collecting air samples and checking radiation levels waited for him. It was boring work, but someone had to make sure the mining colony stayed safe. Tae-Min pulled on his work clothes and grabbed his datapad. The colony of New Bazan sat on the edge of human space, far from Earth and the busy trade routes. Most people here came to mine the rare metals buried deep in the planet's crust. Taemin came because he wanted to study alien life forms, but so far he had only found some simple bacteria and a few strange plants. He stepped outside the research station and breathed in the morning air. The sky was a pale green color, nothing like Earth's blue. 2 small moons hung in the sky like white coins. In the distance, he could see the mining towers pulling precious metals from the ground. Park So-young waved at him from across the small courtyard. She worked with the communication systems, making sure the colony could talk to other human settlements. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she carried a steaming cup of coffee. "Morning, Taemin," she called out. "Any exciting bacteria today?" Taemin laughed. "Maybe. I found some new samples yesterday that change color when I shine light on them." "Wow, party time," So-young said with a grin. "Kim Dong-woo wants to see you after breakfast." "Something about new safety rules." Taemin nodded. Kim Dong-woo ran the colony and worried about everything. New safety rules meant more paperwork for Taemin. He walked to the small dining hall where most of the colonists ate their meals together. The hall buzzed with quiet conversation. Miners talked about their work shifts. Engineers discussed equipment repairs. Children played games while their parents drank coffee. It was a normal morning on New Bazan colony, then the shadows came. At first, Taemin thought clouds were blocking the sun. The dining hall grew darker, and people looked up through the clear ceiling panels. But the shadows moved wrong. They were too big and too fast to be clouds. Someone screamed. Taemin rushed outside with the other colonists. Above them, massive shapes flew through the green sky. They had wings that stretched wider than the colony buildings. Long necks curved in front of enormous bodies. Tails whipped behind them like ship's anchors. Dragons. Real dragons, not the made-up ones from old Earth stories. These creatures were the size of small spacecraft. Their scales caught the sunlight and threw it back in brilliant flashes of red, gold, and silver. When they roared, the sound shook the ground beneath the colonists' feet. "Everyone inside!" Kim Dong-woo shouted. "Get to the emergency shelters now." People ran in all directions. Parents grabbed their children. Miners dropped their tools and sprinted for the nearest buildings. So-young stood next to Taemin, her mouth open in shock. "This can't be real," she whispered, but it was real. The dragons circled the colony like giant birds of prey. Taemin counted at least 20 of them. Their wings created powerful waves that knocked over equipment and sent dust swirling through the air. Then something impossible happened. The largest dragon, covered in deep red scales that looked like polished metal, flew down toward the colony. Instead of attacking, it landed gently in the main courtyard. The creature folded its massive wings and lowered its great head. Other dragons followed, landing around the colony in a wide circle. They made no threatening moves. They simply waited. The red dragon's eyes were golden and intelligent. It looked directly at Taemin, ignoring all the other humans who were running and hiding. Those eyes seemed to study him, as if the creature was trying to read his thoughts. A voice spoke inside Taemin's head. It was not his own voice. The words came from somewhere else, somewhere ancient and powerful. "Lee Taemin of the humans." "We must speak." Taemin's hands shook. He had never heard of dragons that could talk, especially not inside someone's mind. This was supposed to be impossible. Dragons were myths, stories told to children. "Don't move." So-young grabbed his arm. "Maybe it will go away," but the dragon did not go away. It continued to stare at Taemin with those golden eyes. Other colonists peeked out from buildings and hiding places, afraid but curious. The voice came again, clearer this time. "We know you study life. We know you solve problems. We have watched your kind for many years. You think in ways we cannot. Kim Dong-woo emerged from behind a building, holding a communication device. His face was pale but determined. "I'm the administrator here," he called out. "If you want to talk, talk to me." The dragon's great head turned toward Kim Dong-woo for a moment, then swung back to Taemin. "No, we speak to the one who asks questions. The one who looks for answers where others see only problems." Taemin stepped forward. His heart pounded so hard he thought everyone could hear it. But something about the dragon's voice made him feel less afraid. There was sadness in it and desperation. "What do you want?" Taemin asked out loud. The dragon's massive head came closer. Taemin could see his reflection in the creature's golden eyes. When the dragon spoke again, everyone in the colony could hear the words. The voice was deep and ancient, like mountains talking. "We are the last free dragons of Paraxis. Our people face extinction. An ancient enemy has returned from the dark, spaces between stars. They consume life itself, turning worlds into empty graves." The dragon paused, and Taemin heard something he never expected from such a powerful creature. Fear. "We have fought for 3 cycles of our world's orbit. We have lost half our people. Our weapons cannot touch them. Our magic cannot stop them. We are dying, and when we die, they will spread to other worlds. Your world." So Young moved to stand beside Taemin. Other colonists slowly came out of hiding, drawn by the dragon's words. "Why come to us?" Taemin asked. "We're just a small mining colony." The dragon's golden eyes seemed to burn brighter. "Because in all our long lives we have never seen anything like humans. You adapt, you change. You find ways to win when winning should be impossible. You take broken things and make them work. You look at problems and see opportunities." The dragon lowered its great head until it was level with Taemin's eyes. "We are proud. We are powerful. We are ancient. But we cannot change. We cannot adapt. We fight as we have always fought, and our enemy knows all our ways." Taemin felt the weight of the dragon's gaze. Around the colony, the other dragons watched silently. "You want our help to fight this enemy?" "Yes, but more than that." The dragon's voice carried a note of hope. "We want you to teach us to think like humans, to see war as you see it, to find the impossible solutions that only your kind can imagine." Taemin looked at So Young, then at Kim Dong-woo, then at all the colonists who had come out to listen. They were miners and engineers, not soldiers. They had families and simple lives, but they were human. The dragon waited. The colony was silent except for the wind through the creature's great wings. Taemin took a deep breath and gave the answer that would change everything. "Show me your enemy." The red dragon's name was Valthara. She told Taemin this as they prepared to leave New Bizen Colony. Her voice in his mind felt warm and ancient, like sunlight on old stones. "Hold tight to my scales," Valthara said. "The journey to Paraxis is far and space is cold." Taemin climbed onto the dragon's back with So Young and 2 other colonists. Kim Dong-woo had insisted on coming, saying the colony administrator should be part of any important meetings. Choi Mi-na, the colony's medical officer, came because she wanted to study dragon biology. The other dragons took flight first, their massive wings beating against the green sky. Valthara followed, carrying the humans high above New Bizen Colony. Taemin watched his small research station grow smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. Then they flew higher, up through the atmosphere and into the black of space. Taemin expected to freeze or suffocate, but something protected them. A warm bubble of air surrounded the dragon's back, keeping the humans safe. "Dragon magic?" Valthara explained when Taemin asked. "We shape reality to our needs." "But magic has limits, as you will see." The journey took 3 days. They stopped twice on empty planets to rest and eat. The dragons did not seem to need much food, but they drank water from underground springs and slept curled up like giant cats. During the long flight, Valthara told Taemin about dragon society. Dragons lived for thousands of years. They remembered the early days of the galaxy when most planets were young and empty. They had seen civilizations rise and fall like waves on a beach. "We are few but powerful," Valthara said. Each dragon can destroy armies or build cities. We do not breed often and we do not die easily until now. On the third day, they reached Paraxis. Tay-Min stared in wonder at the dragon homeworld. Crystal cities floated among tall mountain peaks, held up by no visible support. Bridges of light connected the floating structures. Dragonfire burned in great furnaces, providing power for machines that looked both ancient and advanced. Dragons of all colors flew between the cities. Some were red like Velthara. Others were gold, silver, blue, green, or deep black. They moved with grace and purpose, their wings catching the light from Paraxis's twin suns. Beautiful, So Young whispered. And dying, Velthara replied sadly. They landed on a platform near the largest crystal city. Other dragons waited for them, including a young red dragon who looked angry and a very old silver dragon whose scales seemed to glow with inner light. The young dragon spoke first. His mental voice was sharp and impatient. I am Mordak, grandson of Velthara. I do not understand why we need help from such small, weak creatures. We are dragons. We have always solved our own problems. The old silver dragon moved forward. Her voice was gentle but filled with deep knowledge. I am Sylvana, keeper of dragon memory. Welcome, humans. We hoped you would come, but we feared you would not. Velthara led them into the crystal city. The buildings were incredible, made from materials that looked like frozen light. Dragonfire powered everything, channeled through crystal tubes that ran like veins through the walls. Your technology is amazing, Tay-Min said. It is old, Sylvana replied. We have used the same methods for millions of years. We see no reason to change what works. They reached a great hall where hundreds of dragons waited. When Velthara entered, they all turned to look at the humans. Some seemed curious. Others looked skeptical or even hostile. Velthara stood before the gathered dragons and spoke aloud. So everyone could hear, these are the humans I spoke of. They have come to help us fight the void spawn. Several dragons roared in disagreement. Mordak was the loudest. We do not need help from creatures that have barely learned to fly between stars. We are dragons. We have power they cannot imagine. Then why are we losing? Velthara asked quietly. The hall fell silent. Sylvana moved to the center of the room. With a gesture, she created images in the air above their heads. The images showed the history of the Void Spawn War. They came from the dark between galaxies, Sylvana explained. Creatures of hunger and emptiness. They do not live as we understand life. They consume the life force of others to sustain themselves. The images showed worlds that had been attacked by the Void Spawn. Once green and full of life, they became gray and dead. Plants withered, animals collapsed. Even the air seemed to lose its color. We fought them before, long ago, Sylvana continued. It took everything we had, but we drove them away. We thought they were gone forever. New images appeared showing recent battles. Dragons fought against creatures that looked like living shadows with too many teeth and eyes that burned with cold fire. The Void Spawn moved in swarms, covering planets like a disease. They have returned stronger, Sylvana said. They learned from their defeat. They built weapons that drain our power. They created shields that our fire cannot burn through. They know how we fight, and they are ready for us. Tay-Min studied the images carefully. He saw dragons fighting with incredible power, breathing plasma that could melt mountains, creating storms of lightning and fire. But the Void Spawn had adapted. They wore armor that absorbed dragon fire. They used devices that made dragon magic weak and unreliable. You always fight the same way, Tay-Min said. Every dragon in the hall turned to look at him. Mordak's eyes burned with anger. We fight with honor and strength. We fight as dragons have always fought. That's the problem, Tay-Min replied. Your enemy has had thousands of years to prepare for exactly that kind of fighting. He pointed at the images of recent battles. Look at your tactics. You fly in straight lines. You attack from the front. You fight one-on-one, dragon against spawn. You're predictable. We fight with courage, Mordak growled. Courage is good, Tay-Min said. But courage without strategy is just a way to die bravely, So Young stepped forward. On Earth, we have a saying. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. And what you're getting is defeat, Taemin added. The hall erupted in angry roars. Many dragons were furious at the suggestion that their ancient ways were wrong, but Valthara raised her great head and silence returned. Show us, she said to Taemin. Show us how humans would fight this war. Taemin looked at the images again. He thought about his military training from years ago, before he became a scientist. He thought about human history, full of smaller armies defeating larger ones through cleverness and adaptation. First, he said, we need to stop thinking like dragons. What does that mean? Sylvana asked. It means we use surprise instead of strength. We attack where they don't expect us. We make them fight on our terms, not theirs. We use weapons they've never seen before. We are what we are, Mordek said. We cannot become something else. You don't have to become something else, Taemin replied. You just have to fight smarter. He turned to address all the dragons in the hall. You have incredible power. You can fly, breathe fire, and use magic. But you're using these gifts in ways the enemy expects. What if you use them in ways they've never imagined? Choi Mi-na had been quietly studying the dragons since they arrived. Now she spoke up. Your biology is fascinating. The way you generate and control energy is beyond anything we've seen. But you're only using a fraction of your potential. What do you mean? Valthara asked. You use your fire as a weapon, but fire is also a tool. You could use it to build, to power machines, to create new materials. You think of your magic as combat spells, but magic could be used for engineering, communication, even deception. Taemin nodded. Humans win wars by making our enemies fight against things they don't understand. We adapt faster than they can respond. We use our environment, our technology, and our imagination. He looked directly at Mordek. You're right that humans are small and weak compared to dragons. But we've conquered our entire planet and spread to the stars not because we're strong, but because we're creative. The young dragon was quiet for a moment, considering. What would you have us do? Valthara asked. Tae-min smiled. First, show me everything about how void spawn fight. Then I'll show you how to make them afraid of dragons again. And if your methods fail? Mordek asked. Then we'll try something else, So Young said. That's what humans do. We keep trying until we find something that works. Sylvana's ancient eyes seemed to brighten. Perhaps that is exactly what we need. The willingness to try new things. As the Dragon Council began to discuss this radical idea, Taemin realized he was about to attempt something that had never been done before. He was going to teach creatures of legend how to think like humans. The war against the void spawn was about to change in ways no one could predict. 3 weeks had passed since Taemin arrived on Paraxis. Every day brought new arguments with the Dragon Council. Some dragons wanted to try his ideas. Others, especially Mordek, thought human tactics were dishonorable and weak. Hiding is for cowards, Mordek said during another heated meeting. Dragons face their enemies with strength and fire. And how has that worked so far? Taemin asked. The young dragon's golden eyes flashed with anger, but he had no answer. The traditional dragon way of fighting had failed against the void spawn. For 3 years running, Valthara finally ended the debate. We will try the human way. Taemin has full authority to change our military methods. Many dragons roared in protest, but Valthara's word was law. She was the eldest and most respected dragon alive. Taemin's first lesson shocked the dragons completely. He took them to an empty valley and told them to hide. Hide where? Asked Kethron, a black dragon who served as a scout. We are too large to hide behind rocks. Think differently, Taemin said. You don't hide your body, you hide your presence. He had So Young set up communication equipment while Choi Mi-na studied dragon biology. Together they discovered something amazing. Dragons could control their internal heat and electromagnetic signatures. With practice, they could become nearly invisible to most sensors. This is shameful, Mordek complained as he learned to suppress his natural fire. A dragon should be seen and feared. Fear only works if you survive long enough to use it. Taemin replied. The next lesson was even harder for the dragons to accept. Taemin taught them to work together as a unit instead of fighting as individual champions. In human armies, we have formations and tactics, he explained to a group of young dragons. Everyone has a role. Some attack, some defend, some provide support. But I am strong enough to fight alone, said a silver dragon named Haiyunwu. Maybe, Taemin said. But 10 dragons working together are stronger than 10 dragons fighting alone. He made them practice coordinated attacks. One dragon would distract an enemy while others attacked from different angles. Some dragons used their fire to create smoke screens while others moved unseen through the cover. The dragons hated it at first. They were used to personal glory and individual combat. Working as a team felt strange and limiting, but slowly they began to see the advantages. So Young revolutionized dragon communications. She created a network that let dragons talk to each other instantly across vast distances. In the old days, dragons fought without knowing what their allies were doing. Now they could coordinate attacks across entire solar systems. This changes everything, Savannah said as she watched the communication system work. We can strike in 100 places at once. Taemin also changed how dragons use their environment. Instead of fighting in open space where the void spawn expected them, he taught them to use asteroid fields, gas clouds, and planetary rings as cover. The universe is full of weapons if you know how to use them, he told them. He showed them how to collapse cave systems to trap enemies, how to use gravity wells to their advantage, and how to turn their own fire into industrial tools for building traps and weapons. The biggest change was in dragon thinking. Taemin taught them that winning was more important than looking heroic. Humans have a saying, he told the council. The best victory is the one where you don't have to fight at all. How can you win without fighting? Mordek asked. By making your enemy defeat himself, Taemin replied. 3 months into the training, they got their first chance to test the new methods. Void spawn scouts were approaching the outer planets of the Paraxis system. In the old days, dragons would have flown out to meet them in glorious battle. Instead, Taemin ordered them to hide. This feels wrong, Mordek said as he concealed himself behind a dead moon. Trust the plan. Velthara told him. The void spawn scouts entered the system expecting to find dragons waiting for them. The creatures looked like living shadows with burning eyes and razor-sharp teeth. Their ships were organic things that pulsed like beating hearts. They found empty space. The void spawn moved deeper into the system, searching for dragons to fight. Their sensors found nothing. Their telepathic abilities detected no dragon thoughts. That was when Taemin sprang his trap. The attack came from everywhere at once. Dragons emerged from hiding spots throughout the system. They struck in coordinated waves, hitting the void spawn from angles the enemy had never experienced. But the real surprise was the weapons. Instead of simply breathing fire, the dragons used tools Taemin had helped them create. They fired concentrated plasma through focusing crystals that tripled the power. They launched asteroids accelerated by dragon magic to incredible speeds. They used their fire to superheat gas clouds, creating expanding walls of destruction. The void spawn had prepared for traditional dragon attacks. They wore armor designed to absorb dragon fire and carried weapons that drained dragon magic. But these new tactics caught them completely off guard. In less than an hour, the entire void spawn scouting force was destroyed. Not a single dragon was lost. The surviving void spawn ship tried to escape, but Kethron was waiting. He had learned to use his speed not for charging into battle, but for cutting off retreat routes. None of them can return to report what they learned here, Taemin had insisted. Surprise only works once. When the battle was over, the dragons gathered in space around Velthara. Many of them, including Mordek, looked stunned. We won, the young dragon said, as if he couldn't believe it. We won without losing anyone. You won because you fought smart instead of just fighting hard, Taemin told him. This is just the beginning, Velthara said. The main void spawn force will come soon. They will be expecting our old tactics, but they will find something completely different. Sylvana's mental voice carried excitement that hadn't been there in years. For the first time since this war began, I believe we might actually win. But Taman knew the real test was still coming. The void spawn would adapt to these new tactics eventually. Dragons would need to keep changing, keep evolving their methods. That night, as the dragons celebrated their first real victory in 3 years, So Young found Taman standing alone on a crystal balcony overlooking the dragon cities. "You did it," she said. "You taught them to fight like humans." "I taught them to think like humans," Taman corrected. "The fighting is just the result of better thinking. What happens next?" Taman looked up at the stars where the main void spawn fleet was still approaching. "Next, we see if dragons can learn to innovate as fast as humans do. Because our enemies are about to get very angry, and they're going to start adapting too." The war was far from over, but for the first time, dragons had hope. They had learned that strength without intelligence was just another way to lose. Now they were ready to fight with both. The real battle was about to begin. The victory celebration ended quickly when Sylvana received terrible news. The Void Spawn had detected the loss of their scouting force and responded with fury. 3 planet-killer ships were heading toward Paraxis, moving faster than anything the dragons had ever seen. "What are planet-killers?" Taman asked as he studied the sensor readings. "Ships that can drain the life from an entire world in days," Valthara replied. Her mental voice carried deep worry. "We have never found a way to stop them." Taman felt his stomach drop. Everything they had accomplished meant nothing if those ships reached Paraxis. The dragon's homeworld would become another gray, lifeless rock floating in space. "How long do we have?" So Young asked. 6 days, Sylvana answered. "Then we need to think bigger," Taman said. He called an emergency meeting of the Dragon Council. When they gathered, he could see fear in their ancient eyes. Even dragons who had lived for thousands of years had never faced anything like this. "The small victories won't be enough," Taman told them. "We need weapons and tactics that can stop planet killers." "We have tried everything," Morduk said. His earlier confidence was gone. "Our most powerful attacks barely scratched their hulls." "That's because you've been thinking like dragons," Taman replied. "We need to think like humans." "What does that mean?" Kethron asked. "It means we cheat," Taman said simply. He turned to Choi Mi-na, who had been studying dragon biology for months. "Tell them what you discovered about dragon fire." Choi Mi-na stepped forward, her datapad filled with research notes. "Dragon fire isn't really fire," she began. "It's controlled nuclear fusion. Your bodies are living fusion reactors. You can manipulate matter at the atomic level." The dragons looked confused. They had never thought about their abilities in scientific terms. "What does this mean for fighting?" Valthara asked. "It means you're not using even half of your potential," Taman said. "You've been using fusion reactors to make pretty flames. We're going to use them to build weapons the Void Spawn have never imagined." The next few days were the most intense in dragon history. Taman pushed them to experiment with their abilities in ways they had never tried. He had Haiyan Wu, the silver dragon, practice creating different types of materials instead of just fire. Within hours, Haiyan Wu could produce super strong metals, explosive compounds, and even complex electronics using only his internal fusion process. "This is impossible," Haiyan Wu said as he created a perfect crystal computer with his breath. "I should not be able to do this." "You always could do this," Choi Mi-na explained. "You just never tried?" Other dragons learned to manipulate gravity, create electromagnetic fields, and even bend space-time in small ways. Abilities they thought were magic turned out to be advanced physics. They had never fully understood, but Taman's most radical idea was yet to come. "We need to combine human and dragon abilities," he announced to the shocked council. "That is forbidden," several dragons said at once. "Dragon biology has never been shared with other species. The Void Spawn are about to kill every dragon alive." Taman replied, "Maybe it's time to break some rules." Valthara was quiet for a long moment. Finally she spoke. "What do you propose?" "Genetic modification," Choi Mi-na said. We can enhance humans with limited dragon abilities and upgrade dragons with human-designed technology. The hall erupted in angry roars. Many dragons saw this as an insult to their pure bloodlines, but Sylvana, the keeper of dragon memory, spoke up. Perhaps purity is less important than survival. The process was dangerous and experimental. Choi Mina worked with dragon healers to create a treatment that would give humans some dragon abilities without killing them. At the same time, Tae Min designed technological implants that could enhance dragon powers. He was the first human to volunteer for the modification. "If this kills me, don't blame the dragons," he told So Young before the procedure. "If this kills you, I'll bring you back to life just so I can kill you myself," she replied. The genetic modification was painful. For 3 days, Taemin felt like his body was being rebuilt from the inside. His temperature spiked, his bones ached, and strange dreams filled his sleep. When he recovered, everything had changed. Tae-Min could now sense heat signatures from miles away. His body could withstand temperatures that would have killed him before. Most importantly, he could generate and control small amounts of fusion energy, just like a dragon. "How do you feel?" Choi Mina asked. "Different," Taemin said, "but still human." So Young volunteered for the next procedure, followed by several other humans from New Bizan colony who had arrived to help. Soon there was a small group of human dragon hybrids working alongside the modified dragons. The technological upgrades were just as dramatic. Dragons learned to use human-designed computers that could process millions of calculations per second. Their natural abilities were enhanced by precision instruments that could focus their power with incredible accuracy. Mordok was among the first dragons to accept the modifications. The proud young dragon now wore a complex harness that amplified his fire and connected him to the communication network. "I feel strange," he admitted to Taemin, "but also more powerful than ever before." "Power is just a tool," Taemin said. "What matters is how you use it." With 2 days left before the planet killers arrived, they tested their new abilities. The results amazed everyone. The hybrid humans could survive in environments that would have killed normal people. They could generate energy shields and even fly short distances using controlled fusion bursts. The enhanced dragons were even more impressive. Their fire could now cut through materials that had previously been indestructible. Their senses could detect enemies across entire solar systems. Most importantly, they could adapt their abilities in real time, changing their approach as battles developed. "We're not the same species we were a week ago," So Young observed. "Evolution," Taemin said. "Humans do it through technology and culture. Dragons do it through biology and magic. Together, we're doing it faster than anyone thought possible." But the real test came when the planet killers arrived. The 3 massive ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Paraxis system. Each one was the size of a moon, covered in organic armor that pulsed with dark energy. They began moving toward the dragon homeworld, leaving trails of dead space behind them. "They're already draining life from empty space," Sylvana reported. "When they reach Paraxis, they will consume everything." "Not if we stop them first," Taemin said. The attack began differently than any battle in dragon history. Instead of flying out to meet the enemy, the enhanced dragons used their new abilities to strike from impossible distances. Haiyan Wu created missiles of pure fusion energy and launched them across space at near light speed. The projectiles hit the first planet killer and actually damaged its hull. "It worked," Velthara said in amazement. "We heard it." But the void spawn ships adapted quickly. They deployed new shields that absorbed the fusion missiles and sent swarms of fighter creatures toward Paraxis. "Time for the real plan," Taemin said. What happened next had never been attempted before. The hybrid humans and enhanced dragons worked together in ways that neither species could have managed alone. Humans provided tactical coordination and technological precision. Dragons provided raw power and adaptability. Together they created weapons and tactics that defied both human science and dragon magic. The battle raged for hours. Space around Paraxis filled with explosions, energy beams, and creatures fighting in ways the galaxy had never seen. When it was over, All 3 planet killers had been destroyed. We did it, Mordek said, his voice filled with wonder. We actually did it, but Taman knew this was just the beginning. The main Void Spawn fleet was still coming, and they would be ready for these new tactics. We won this battle, he told the celebrating dragons. But the war is just getting started. Then we keep evolving, Valthara said. We keep changing faster than they can adapt. As the hybrid humans and enhanced dragons began preparing for the next phase of the war, Taman realized they had become something entirely new. Not quite human, not quite dragon, but something that could face any challenge the universe offered. The real battle for survival was about to begin. The victory against the planet killers brought only brief celebration. Within days, Sylvana's sensors detected something that made every dragon's blood run cold. The main Void Spawn fleet was coming, and it was enormous. 300 ships, Sylvana reported to the Emergency Council. Each one larger than our biggest cities. They will arrive in 10 days. Taman studied the sensor data with growing dread. Even with their new abilities, the dragons couldn't fight that many enemies at once. Traditional strategy said they should evacuate Paraxis and hide in distant star systems, but Taman had never been good at accepting impossible situations. We're not running, he announced. Be reasonable, Kim Dong-woo said. Even humans know when to retreat. Humans also know when to take crazy risks, So Young added, understanding Taman's tone. What are you thinking? Taman stood before the assembled dragons and humans. His enhanced abilities let him sense their emotions. Fear, desperation, but also hope. They trusted him to find an answer. We're going to do something that has never been attempted in galactic history, he said. We're going to make them think they're fighting the entire dragon race, when really they're fighting empty space. The plan was so audacious that even Valthara looked shocked. You want us to create fake dragon fleets throughout the galaxy? She asked. Exactly. The Void Spawn think they know how many dragons exist. We're going to make them think there are 10 times more of us than there really are. Choi Mina pulled up holographic displays showing dragon biology. Dragons can naturally change their appearance, she explained. With our technological enhancements, we can make that ability much more powerful. Working with So Young's communication systems, they developed a network of holographic projectors that could be controlled from Paraxis. Dragons could project false images of themselves anywhere in the galaxy, making it look like huge dragon fleets were defending dozens of worlds. The Void Spawn will detect these fake fleets and split their forces, Taman explained. Instead of facing 300 ships here, we'll face maybe 50 while the rest chase phantoms. And then, Mordek asked, then we hit their real target. The thing they're really after. Sylvana had discovered the truth through careful study of Void Spawn behavior. They weren't just trying to destroy dragons. They were after something specific. The Void Spawn have a hive mind, she explained. One central consciousness that controls all of them. It travels in their command ship, hidden in the center of their fleet. If we destroy the hive mind, the entire Void Spawn force will collapse, Taman said. But getting to it means fighting through their entire fleet. That's impossible, several dragons said. Only if we fight like we're supposed to, Taman replied with a grin. The next week was spent in frantic preparation. Dragons practiced their new shape-shifting abilities, learning to project false images across interstellar distances. The holographic network was installed on abandoned worlds throughout the galaxy, but the most controversial part of the plan involved something dragons had never done before, lying. We need to plant false information where the Void Spawn will find it, Taman explained. Dragons do not lie, Valthara said firmly. Then don't think of it as lying, So Young suggested. Think of it as creative truth-telling. Working with Sylvana, they created fake dragon prophecies and historical records. These documents suggested that dragons were preparing a final desperate ritual on Paraxis, gathering all their remaining power for one last stand. The Void Spawn study their enemies, Taman said. When they find these records, they'll believe dragons are making their final stand here. They'll bring everything they have to witness our destruction. And instead, they'll find a trap, Catherine said, beginning to understand. The fake documents were planted in ancient dragon archives that the Void Spawn would likely investigate. The holographic fleets were positioned throughout the galaxy. Everything was ready. When the Void Spawn fleet arrived, the deception worked perfectly. They're splitting up, Sylvana reported. 2/3 of their fleet is chasing our phantom dragons. Only 90 ships are heading for Paraxis. Still too many, Morduk said. Not if we're smart about it, Taemin replied. The Void Spawn approached. Paraxis expecting to find dragons preparing a mystical ritual. Instead, they found what looked like a planet in chaos. Dragons flew in panicked circles, cities burned, and emergency broadcasts filled the communication channels. All of it was fake. The real dragons were hidden throughout the Paraxis system. Waiting, the burning cities were holographic projections. The panicked broadcasts were carefully scripted performances. They're taking the bait, So Young reported from her hidden position. The command ship is moving toward the planet. The Void Spawn command ship was a massive thing, larger than some moons. It pulsed with dark energy and was surrounded by layers of protective escorts. Getting to it should have been impossible, but Taemin had learned something important about fighting impossible battles. The key was to make them possible by changing what the word possible meant. Phase 1, he signaled. Hidden throughout the system, dragons began the most coordinated attack in their history. But instead of targeting the Void Spawn ships directly, they targeted the space around them, using their enhanced abilities. Dragons superheated asteroids until they exploded like bombs. They created gravitational anomalies that pulled Void Spawn ships out of formation. They even folded spacetime in small areas, making enemy ships crash into each other. What are they doing? The Void Spawn hive mind must have wondered as its fleet fell into chaos. Phase 2, Taemin ordered. Now the real attack began. While the Void Spawn fleet struggled with environmental chaos, small teams of enhanced dragons and hybrid humans struck at specific targets. They didn't try to destroy the enemy ships. Instead, they disabled weapons, communication arrays, and navigation systems. Within an hour, the Void Spawn fleet was blind, deaf, and helpless. Phase 3, Taemin said. This was the moment everything depended on. A single strike team, led by Taemin himself, flew directly toward the command ship. The team included Velthara, Morduk, So Young, and 6 other enhanced beings. They moved fast and low, using the chaos to hide their approach. The command ship's shields are too strong, Morduk reported as they got closer. We can't break through. We don't need to break through, Taemin said. We need to get invited in. He had So Young send a carefully crafted message to the Void Spawn hive mind. The message claimed to be from a group of dragons who wanted to surrender in exchange for their lives. Dragons do not surrender, the hive mind responded. Desperate. Dragons do, Taemin's message replied. We offer you the location of all remaining dragon worlds if you spare our children. It was a lie that played on the Void Spawn's arrogance. They believed dragons were too proud to surrender, which made the offer seem genuine. Come aboard, the hive mind finally replied, but if this is deception, you will suffer eternally. Just get us inside, Taemin whispered to his team, the command. Ship's docking bay opened to receive them. As they flew inside, Taemin could feel the presence of the hive mind like a weight on his thoughts. This creature had lived for millions of years and consumed countless worlds. You are not what you seem, the hive mind said as they landed. Void Spawn warriors surrounded them, creatures of living shadow with burning eyes. No, Taemin agreed, letting his human-dragon hybrid nature show. We're not. The battle inside the command ship was unlike anything that had ever happened. Enhanced humans and dragons fought Void Spawn creatures in the corridors of a living starship, while the hive mind itself joined the combat. But Taemin had one final surprise. Throughout the ship, he had been planting small devices that So Young had designed. They looked like communication equipment, but they were actually something much more dangerous. Now, he shouted to So Young. She activated the devices, and suddenly the entire command ship was filled with a sound that made the void Spawn scream in agony. It was music, dragon songs, human laughter, the sounds of life and joy and hope. The void spawn, creatures of emptiness and hunger, couldn't tolerate it. "What is this?" the hive mind roared. "This is what you're trying to destroy," Taemin said as he and Velthara approached the creature's core. "This is why we'll never let you win." The hive mind was a thing of pure hunger, a cosmic parasite that had forgotten what it meant to create instead of consume. As it writhed in pain from the sounds of life, Taemin saw something he hadn't expected: fear. "You're afraid," he realized. "You're not evil. You're just scared and hungry." "We consume because we must," the hive mind gasped. "It is all we know." "Then it's time to learn something new," Taemin said. What happened next would change the war completely. Standing before the void spawn hive mind, Taemin made a choice that surprised everyone, including himself. Instead of destroying the creature that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years, he did something completely human. He offered it help. "You don't have to consume life," he said to the writhing mass of darkness and hunger. "There are other ways to survive." "Impossible," the hive mind gasped. "We have tried everything. Consumption is the only path." "You've tried everything." Taemin corrected. "But you don't know what humans know." Velthara looked at him in shock. "Taemin, this creature has destroyed countless worlds. It cannot be trusted." "Maybe not," Taemin said. "But it can be taught." The battle around them had stopped. Void spawn. Creatures and dragons stared in confusion as Taemin approached the hive mind without weapons. "Show me your memories," he said to the ancient entity. "Show me why you consume." What Taemin saw in the hive mind's memories changed everything he thought he understood about the war. The void spawn were not originally evil, they were the last survivors of a universe that had died long before this one existed. When their reality collapsed into nothingness, they barely escaped into this dimension, but the journey had changed them. "We were once creators," the hive mind showed him. "We built worlds of beauty and life. But the crossing between universes stripped away our ability to create. Only hunger remained." "You're not monsters," Taemin realized. "You're refugees." The genetic modifications he had received from dragon biology suddenly activated in ways no one had expected. The fusion of human adaptability and dragon power allowed him to do something impossible. He began to share his own life energy with the hive mind. But instead of being consumed, the energy transformed. "What are you doing?" So Young asked in. "Alarm. Teaching," Taemin said as golden light flowed between him and the void spawn. "Humans learn by doing. Dragons learn by experiencing. This creature learns by consuming. So I'm letting it consume the knowledge of how to create instead of how to destroy." The process was dangerous. Taemin felt his own life force being drained, but the hybrid abilities kept him alive. More importantly, something was changing in the hive mind. For the first time in millions of years, the void spawn remembered what it felt like to build instead of tear down. "This is impossible," the hive mind whispered as new understanding flooded through it. "I can feel ... Hope? Hope is the most human thing there is," Taemin said. "We hope when we shouldn't. We try when we should give up. We find solutions when everyone says there aren't any." But the real surprise was yet to come. The genetic modification process hadn't just given humans dragon abilities. It had given them something entirely new, the power to share consciousness without losing individuality. So Young felt it first. "Taemin, I can sense what you're thinking, but I'm still me." Other enhanced humans and dragons began to experience the same thing. They were connecting on a level deeper than telepathy, sharing knowledge and abilities while remaining unique individuals. "We're evolving," Troy-Mina said in wonder. "All of us together." The hive mind, for its part, was learning things it had never imagined possible. Through Taemin's shared memories, it experienced human creativity, dragon wisdom, and the joy of cooperation instead of domination. "I remember now," the ancient entity said, its voice changing from a growl to something almost musical. "I remember what it was like to create beautiful things." "Then create," Velthara said, understanding what Taemin was trying to do. "Show us what you can build instead of what you can destroy." What happened next amazed everyone in the command ship. The void spawn's power, which had always been used for consumption and destruction, began to work in reverse. Dead areas of the ship started to bloom with new forms of life, empty spaces filled with structures of impossible beauty. How? Mordek asked. Life force flows both ways, the hive mind explained as it continued to create. We always took it from others, but we can also give it. We can bring life to dead places. The transformation spread beyond the command ship. Throughout the void spawn fleet, creatures that had been instruments of destruction began to change. They remembered their original purpose and started creating. Instead of consuming dot within hours, the entire void spawn fleet had become something unprecedented, a construction force capable of bringing life to dead worlds. The war is over, Sylvana announced to the galaxy, but not the way anyone expected. The news spread quickly through dragon and human space. The void spawn were no longer enemies. They had become partners in the greatest project the galaxy had ever seen, the restoration of worlds they had previously destroyed. Working together, dragons, humans, and reformed void spawn began bringing life back to systems that had been dead for millions of years. Dragonfire provided energy, human ingenuity designed new ecosystems, and void spawn abilities created the basic building blocks of life. This is impossible, Kim Dong-woo said as he watched dead planets turn green and blue with new life. Humans specialize in impossible things, So Young replied, but the changes weren't just external. The three species were continuing to evolve together, sharing knowledge and abilities in ways that made each group stronger. Humans gained long life and powerful abilities from dragon biology. Dragons learned creativity and adaptability from human thinking. The void spawn rediscovered their ancient ability to create beauty and meaning. What are we becoming? Valthara asked Taemin as they watched new worlds bloom with life. Something better than what we were alone? He replied. 6 months after the war ended, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered on New Paraxis, a planet that had been jointly created by all three species. They came to establish the Interspecies Innovation Institute, the first organization designed to solve problems that no single species could handle. Tae-Min stood before the gathered delegates. No longer fully human, but not entirely dragon either. He had become something new, and he wasn't alone. Throughout the galaxy, others were undergoing the same transformation. A year ago, dragons came to humans for help with a war, he began his speech. They thought they needed to learn how to fight better. What they really needed to learn was how to think differently. He gestured to the mixed crowd of dragons, humans, void spawn, and other species that had joined the alliance. Humans have a saying, the best way to destroy an enemy is to make him your friend. But I think there's an even better way. The best way to solve any problem is to change how you think about the problem. The audience listened intently as he continued. Dragons taught us that power without wisdom is meaningless. Humans taught dragons that wisdom without adaptability is useless. The void spawn taught everyone that even the oldest patterns can be changed if you're willing to try something new. He paused, looking out at faces that represented dozens of different species, all working together for the first time in galactic history. We